Hello Divination, thank you for joining us in this tutorial where I will be showing you how to recreate all of these section divider examples that were shared with you within the announcement blog post of the Divi update. So without any further ado and without wasting any time, let's get to it. Alright, so before we dive into the tutorial, let's take a quick look at the different section dividers that we'll be recreating within this video tutorial. And if you want to follow all of the steps within the blog post, you can do that as well. I've mentioned the link in the description below. So these are the section dividers that we'll be recreating, and this is what they look like on desktop. Then we have the same kind of result on tablet as well. And the phone version looks equally as good, as you can see on the screen. Alright, so I have this page over here with all of the rows and columns and text modules that are needed to achieve the exact same result, but I'm not going to show you how to recreate each and every one of them. I'm rather going to focus on recreating the section dividers of each and every section, and you can use these for your own needs and for your next Divi project if you want to, and you can combine these with any content that you're creating. So all right, let's start with this first example over here. So the first thing you will always need to do when you're creating a section and you want to add a section divider to it is selecting a color for it. So I'm going to open the settings of this section over here, and I'll move on to the background subcategory, and I'm going to add a background color. So afterwards, I'm going to add a gradient background on top of it, but I will select this background color first because this will help you create the section dividers between two sections. All right, so I have this background color over here, and then I'm going to move on to the gradient background tab, and I'm going to add another background color to it, but this time with two gradients. So I'll just click on this over here, and I have already set the colors, and you can find all of these steps in the link in the description below that leads you to the blog post. But you're using these two color codes. The gradient type needs to be linear, and the gradient direction is 28 degrees. The start position is 0%, and the end position is 100%. So now that I have chosen my background color and my gradient background, I can move on to the design tab. And over here, I'm going to open the divider subcategory, and I'm going to use both a top and bottom section divider. So I'll start with the top one, and you'll need to find the divider style within the list first. So just scroll down until you come across the following one. And as you can see, the top divider over here is quite subtle, and to achieve this kind of effect, we're going to use a slightly white color but mostly transparent, as you can see on the screen. And we're going to scroll down and make sure that the divider height is set to 200, and you can choose for yourself whether you want the divider to appear underneath the section content or on top of the section content. All right, so then we'll open the bottom divider over here, and we're going to choose the same style for it. So we'll scroll down the list and select the last option over here. And for this section, we'll need to make sure that the divider color is clear. This will help us make the transition between the two colors of the two sections over here. So this will have a white background color, and by choosing a blank divider color, the transition will happen really smoothly between both sections. All right, so then we'll scroll down and make sure that the divider height is set to 149 pixels. And again, you can choose whether the divider appears underneath section content or on top of it. So let's move on to the next example. And the first thing that we'll need to do is add a white background color to this first section over here. And then we'll move on to the next section. and open the section settings. And again, we're always going to add a background color to each section first. So let's start with that. We're going to give this section a red background color. And on top of it, we're using a gradient background color with the following color codes. We're using linear as our gradient type, 90 degrees for our gradient direction, and we're keeping the start and end position the way it is. Then we'll move on to the design tab, open the divider subcategory, and we'll start off by adding a top section divider to this section. And this is the one that we're choosing. And we're making sure that the divider color is clear. We're using 274 pixels for the divider height and 0.6 for the horizontal repeat. Again, you can choose whether you want the divider to appear underneath section content or on top of it. Now let's add the bottom one as well. And again, we're choosing the divider style from our list. And for this one, we're using a red color, and this will be the same color that we'll use in the gradient background of our next section. So the transition happens smoothly. And we're using 277 pixels for the divider height and 0.7 for the horizontal repeat, and we're flipping the divider as well, so you can choose whether you want it to appear on the opposite side or no. All right, now we can move on to the next section over here, and as usual we're going to add a background color first. So I'll add this same red color as we've used for the bottom divider of the previous section. And on top of it, I'm going to add a gradient background as well. So these are the color codes that we've used, but again, you can find all of these color codes and all of these settings in the blog post, which I have mentioned in the description below. And we're using a linear gradient type for this gradient background. And the only thing we're changing is the end position. We're changing that to 97%. All right, so now we can add the bottom divider to this section as well. So we want a section divider to appear over here, and for that, we're going to select the following divider style. All right, and we're making sure that the divider color is clear once again, and we're using 300 pixels for the divider height, 1 for the horizontal repeat, and we're making sure that this appears underneath section content, because if you choose on top, you'll see the following result appear. All right, so we have this example in place. So let's move on to the next one. And the first thing we'll do with this section is add a background color. So again, we're going to choose a white background color to empathize the contrast between both sections. And then we'll move on to the design tab and add a bottom divider to this section. So again, choose your divider in the list, and it's currently black, but that will change once we add a background color to the next section. But again, make sure that the divider color is clear. Use the divider height you want and select 0 pixels for the horizontal repeat. And again, you can flip this divider according to your needs. And we'll also make the divider appear on top of section content. Now let's open the next section, and over here we're going to add a background color once again. And once you do that, you'll notice that the bottom divider of the previous section changes along with it. And we're going to add a gradient background on top of it. And this transition will happen smoothly once we add the top divider to this section. So these are the two color codes that we're using for this gradient background. We're using linear as our gradient type, and we're keeping everything else the way it is. So let's move on to the design tab and start adding the dividers. So we'll start with the top one. And we're choosing the following divider style. And as you can see, it blends really well with the previous section and the gradient background. And we're using the following color code for our divider color. And we'll also use 337 pixels for our divider height and 0.75 for our horizontal repeat. And we're flipping this divider, but again, you can choose which side you prefer. All right, so let's add the bottom divider next. And we're choosing the following one for the bottom. We're making sure that the divider color is clear because we want it to blend with our next section. And we're using the following values for our divider height and horizontal repeat. And we're also flipping the divider to make it match with the top divider, and make sure that you use underneath section content for the divider arrangement as well, so your image will come through. Now let's set a background color for the next section over here. And as you do that, you will see that the two sections blend really well with each other. And we're going to use a gradient background for this section as well. And then we'll move on to the design tab. And we're going to add a bottom divider to this section. And we're going to make sure the divider color is clear. And these are the values you'll need for the divider height and the horizontal repeat. And we're flipping this divider as well. And again, if you want your image to show up on top of it, make sure that you select underneath section content. Now let's move on to the next example. Again, we're adding a background color to this section. And as soon as we do that, we can move on to the second section. Again, start off by adding a background color. So you'll have to remember that you'll have to add a background color to each and every section you create. And you can add a gradient background on top of it. Then move on to the design tab, open the divider subcategory and start by creating a top divider. Make sure that your divider color is clear once again, just to make sure that it blends well, and use the following values for the divider height and the horizontal repeat. Next, we'll add a bottom divider as well. So go ahead and select one from your list. Again, make sure that the divider color is clear and use the following values for your divider height and horizontal repeat. And we're flipping this divider as well. All right, so here we have the results. Let's move on to the next example. Again, add a background color to your first section. So we're using white. And we're going to add a bottom divider to this section. So scroll down until you come across the one you want to use. And the divider color needs to be clear because we're going to make the transition with the next section. And we're going to change the desktop value into 192 pixels. And of course, you could flip your divider if you want to. The next section will not contain any dividers, but we're going to use it to make the transition. So once you add a background color, you can see that your divider takes the same color. And for the next section, we're going to add a background color as well. And on top of that, we're using a gradient background with the following color codes. The gradient type is linear. The only thing we're changing is the start position into 39%. And make sure that you place the gradient above the background image because we're adding a background image right away. So if you don't place it above your background image, it won't blend nicely with the gradient background. Then move on to the Design tab, open the Divider subcategory, and start by adding a top divider. We're going to add a bottom divider as well. So choose one from the list. You can pick whichever you want to, but we're going to use the following one. And as you can see, everything blends well if you make sure that the divider color is blank. And choose the following values for the divider height on desktop, tablet, and phone. And then we'll add the bottom divider as well. And we're choosing the same divider style. And for this divider, we're using the following color code. And choose the following divider height and horizontal repeat as well. And you can flip this divider if you want to. So here we have our result. Let's move on to the next one. Again, first of all, add a background color to your first section over here, and then open the next section. Again, add a background color that matches the gradient background that you're going to add on top of it. These are the two color codes that we're using for this gradient background. We're using a linear gradient type, 216 degrees, and 42% for start position. Then we'll move on to the Design tab, open the Divider subcategory. And we'll start off by adding a top divider. Again, you could choose whichever one you want, but we're going to choose the following one. And the divider height values are the following. And okay, make sure that you have a clear divider color as well. And we're going to place this section divider underneath the section content. Okay, so let's add a bottom section divider as well. So we're going to go with this one. We're making sure that the divider color is clear. 300 pixels for a divider height and 0 for our horizontal repeat. And we're choosing on top of section content for this bottom divider. Now we can move on to the next section. Again, we're going to add a background color to it. And on top of that, we'll add a subtle gradient background with the following color codes. We're making sure our gradient type is linear and we're keeping everything else the way it is. Now we'll have to add a bottom divider to this section as well. So go ahead and choose your divider style. Use the following divider height, which differs on desktop, tablet, and phone. 0.5 for the horizontal repeat, and we're making sure the divider appears underneath the section content. Now let's move on to the next example. Again, we're adding a background color to the first section. So we're using white. Then we'll move on to the Design tab, open the Divider subcategory, and add a bottom divider. And for this one, we're using the following divider style. Again, we're making sure the divider color is clear. And we're using the following values for the divider height. And we're making sure our divider horizontal repeat is set to 0. And again, you can choose where your divider appears, underneath the section content or on top of it. So let's open the settings of the next section. And again, the first thing we'll do is add a color which the divider takes as well. We'll move on to the divider subcategory within the Design tab, and we'll add a bottom section divider. And in this case, we're choosing the following one. We're making sure the divider color is clear, and we're using the following values for the divider height. They differ on desktop, tablet, and phone. All right, so here we have this example. And let's move on to the last example of this video tutorial. Again, we're choosing the background color for our first section, which is the following color code, and then we'll move on to the divider subcategory within the Design tab and add a bottom section divider. Again, we're making sure our divider color is clear, and we're using different values for our divider height. Now the last thing that's left to do is add a background color to the last section over here. And here you have your section divider. Okay, so let's take a final look at all of the different section dividers that we've shown you how to recreate. So you can use these section dividers for any section on your website with the content that you are trying to share with your visitors. So you can achieve these stunning results. But you have to remember that you'll need to add a background color to each section first, and then you can achieve these beautiful results. Well, that was all for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and make sure that you subscribe to our social media channels so you'll get a notification every time we have something new for you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.